Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this Part B Internal Medicine Common Rejections and Denials webinar. This webinar is designed for those who submit claim form or the 837P electronic claim. My name is Mary Moko. I'm a specialist on the Provider Outreach and Education team at WPS GHA. I will be your speaker today, and assisting me is my friend and colleague, Ellen Vera. We begin this webinar with this disclaimer, and we use this disclaimer in education to remind learners that although we made every effort to provide information that is correct, the information is subject to change. It is on the CMS that determine final coverage. These laws, regulations, and rulings will always prevail. We will provide responses to questions based on the facts given. And just one last final reminder, CMS prohibits recording of this presentation for profit-making purposes. We are recording this event, and a recording will be available later on our YouTube channel and on our Encore Presentations webpage. Here's our agenda for today. You may have noticed in our advertisement that our agenda shows that this presentation really focuses on data. In their internet-only manual, it is publication 100-09, Chapter 6, CMS instructs that MACs should analyze and provide education based on claim submission errors. Claim submission errors do include those that result in rejected or denied claims. For today's webinar, I advertised that I would discuss data for specialty topics I said I would cover include common rejections and denials and ways to fix them or avoid them altogether. I'll also provide many helpful resources that will help you fix and avoid the rejections and denials that I'm going to talk about. And finally, I advertised that I would answer questions about those common rejections and denials that I'll be discussing today. Now, to fully understand rejections and denials, it is important to recognize the path that a claim takes, or what we at WPS GHA sometimes call the life of a claim. Here is a simplified graphic on how a claim gets into our system. The service is rendered, a claim is submitted. Sometimes the claim system rejects the claims. When this occurs, a 277 or 999 report is generated to explain why. This slide describes claim submission. Most of you submit claims electronically. In fact, very few providers actually qualify for a waiver under a law that prohibits payment of any claim for items or services when the provider did not submit the bill to Medicare electronically. Now, to confirm claim receipt, providers should use the 999 report, use the 277 report, or more specific information. Now, our electronic data interchange, or EDI staff, actually provides some very helpful information about that information that you'll find in the 277 report. It's called the Medicare 276-277 Companion Guide. And this really will help clarify, and it will help further define the data content requirements for an electronic claim. It is based on these reports that you will know if the batch is rejected and if you need to correct or resubmit. Here is another simplified graphic, but this one shows what happens to a claim that Medicare deems as unprocessable. Again, the service is provided, the claim is submitted, but something's wrong, something's invalid, incorrect, or even missing. There's an incorrect format for that claim, and a remittance advice is generated. This slide shows you a comparison between a rejected claim and a denied claim. And it's really important to understand that these two are really very, very different. I think a lot of people use these when they really shouldn't do that. I even catch myself sometimes saying denial when I'm talking about a rejection or vice versa. So along the left-hand side here of this slide, you will see some information about rejected claims. Rejections are, or rejected claims are unprocessable. They're returned on the front end. They're never adjudicated. The reason why they're never adjudicated is something's illogical or missing or incorrect. Because these claims are never adjudicated, there are no appeal rights. What you need to do is resubmit the service. On the remittance advice, you will find various codes. For example, an MA130 is a remittance advice remark code that explains that the claim contains incomplete or invalid information and that there are no appeal rights. What you need to do is submit a new claim with the complete or correct code. It's a contractual obligation and the patient is not liable for the charges. Now, when you compare this to a denied claim, you will see and recognize those differences between rejections and denials that I talked about, making it really important to understand that there really is a difference. A denied claim is one that's adjudicated. It's denied, or a claim line is denied on the claim because it fails to meet Medicare's payment criteria. Now, this could be based on a law or what we call a statutory requirement. Maybe the services didn't meet Medicare's medical necessity rules, frequency guidelines, which is really a form of a medical necessity. Eligibility is another reason why claims deny. Sometimes the beneficiary is not eligible to receive a Medicare service on the date of service, and sometimes it's the provider that doesn't meet the eligibility rules. For denied claims, on the claim or on the remittance advice rather, you will see an MA01 remittance advice remark code. And what this particular remark code says, and there may be others of course too, but this one, MA01, states that you're approved for the services, you can appeal. And it talks then about you must submit that request for an appeal within 120 days of the date of the remittance advice, unless you have a good reason for being late. So this graphic then shows the path for a processed claim. Again, the service is rendered, the claim is submitted, and the claim on claim lines will either pay based on Medicare guidelines, and then the remittance advice is generated. Now, there's a lot of information on that remittance advice, and it's important for you to pay attention to the information there in order for you to fix or resubmit or request an appeal for an item or service that was rejected or denied. Sometimes we talk about the remittance advice and call it by different names. You might hear us call it the remittance notice in addition to the remittance advice. And of course, some people will just shorten that up to the remit. Other times you might hear us refer to it as the RA. Most providers receive an electronic remittance advice or an ERA as opposed to a paper remittance or an SPR, standard paper remittance. Now, depending on how the claim processed, it may include information about any adjustments that are made to the claim or denials. It could also include information about something that's missing. And sometimes it even provides notice about refunds and offset. Another thing you will find on an electronic remittance advice is payment information about transfer of funds and payment processing from a health plan to a healthcare provider's bank. Codes on the remittance advice provide information about the claim. I talked about them just a little bit already. Claim adjustment reason codes, or CARCs, explain why a claim paid differently than it was billed. Remittance advice remark codes, or RARCs, provide more details about an adjustment that's described by the claim adjustment reason codes. So most often you're going to see more than one code on the remittance advice. There's also claim adjustment group codes on the remittance advice, and these convey the financial responsibility for any unpaid portion of the claim balance. A CO, I talked about this one before, stands for contractual obligation, and it means the provider is liable and cannot bill the patient. A PR means the patient is financially responsible. Now you can find code lists on the Washington Publishing Company's website. It is the Washington Publishing Company that maintains those codes for CMS. You can find links to the code lists on their website, and you can also find ways to contact the Washington Publishing Company if you have comments to make about any of the code reasons or how they print out on the remittance advice. We do receive comments from providers about the remittance codes. Sometimes the providers remark that the code is cryptic, or they may even be out of date. For example, some of the code messages include outdated acronyms, but WPS-GHA is not able to address this. It does need to go through the Washington Publishing Company because they do maintain those codes for CMS. Here are some good resources. If you're looking for more information about the remittance advice, both of these are found on CMS's website. So I'm sharing them with you. You will find a good number of resources that I've included in your presentation materials. I've actually hyperlinked them. So if you pull up an electronic version of the handout, you will be able to click on these embedded links and get to a number of resources that I've included in the presentation materials. Next, I want to talk about whether you need to correct or appeal the MAC's decision to pay or deny a claim. Now, after reviewing your remittance advice, or RA, you will need to choose an action to take. So for an unprocessable or rejected claim, you'll need to fix the error and resubmit the claim to Medicare. Remember, for rejections, there is no appeal rights. If the claim or claim line denied, though, there may be multiple actions to choose from. You might be able to simply resubmit the service, submit another claim to Medicare or a new claim. You might also be able to choose to use the clerical error reopening, or CER process, to fix clerical errors. And CMS defines clerical errors, including minor errors or omissions, as human or mechanical errors. I'll talk more about that process a little bit later in this webinar. Another action to consider for a rejected claim, or not a rejected claim, let me correct myself there, I just did it. Another action to consider for a denied claim is an appeal. The remittance advice is going to provide those appeal rights, and I'll talk about appeals just a little bit later also in this webinar. Registered users can use our transactional portal in order to render a clerical error reopening or to request an appeal. And this is just one of multiple self-service tools that WPS offers. These self-service tools really do offer the most efficiencies. We do have a portal user manual. It provides illustrations and step-by-step instructions on how to use these portal features among the other functionalities of the transactional portal. Here's when I want to talk a little bit more about the clerical error reopening process. This is that process to correct human or mechanical errors. Clerical errors or minor errors are limited to those errors in form and content. This does not include the failure to bill for certain items or services. The final bullet on this slide is a link to that helpful resource on our website that provides examples of situations that can and cannot be processed as a clerical error reopening. It also explains how to request one via telephone or fax if you choose not to use the self-service option. You must submit a clerical error reopening within 1 year of the remittance advice receipt date. Just to provide a couple examples of the kind of situations or clerical error submissions that you might want to use this process on would be mathematical or computational mistakes, transposed procedure or diagnosis codes, inaccurate claim data entry, perhaps misapplication of a fee schedule, or other kinds of computer errors. Those are all types of clerical error submissions that would be valid for this process, the clerical error reopening. Now for claim denials, most often you can request an appeal, and remember the remittance advice is going to tell you when you do have the right to an appeal. The purpose of the appeals process is really to ensure the correct adjudication of claims. Physicians, suppliers, and beneficiaries have the right to appeal claim determinations made by their MAC. The beneficiary or their representative can request an appeal on any service processed for them. Providers and suppliers may appeal services for which they accepted assignment. Now, for unassigned claims, providers and suppliers can act as the beneficiary's representative, but if that's the case, the beneficiary would need to sign an authorization statement. One such statement is the CMS 1696, the appointment of representative. In addition, for non-assigned claims, a provider or supplier can request a redetermination, that level 1 appeal. On an unassigned claim, if Medicare denied that service is not medically necessary, or if the provider billed in excess of the limiting charge. And in that case, the provider would need to refund any fees collected from the beneficiary in excess of that limiting charge. There are 5 levels of Medicare appeals. There is only one level of appeal that is rendered by the MAC or by WPS-GHA, and that is the first level of appeal. That one's called a redetermination. All 5 levels have time limits that you have in order to file the request for appeal. And there are also time limits to complete the appeal decision or to make that appeal decision. Time frames, as I mentioned, apply for each level, and you need to be cognizant of those. Additionally, there's a minimum amount in controversy. Sometimes we call that the AIC. That's a dollar threshold that applies. This applies to levels 3 and 5. You can combine like denials on more than one claim in order to reach that amount in controversy threshold. Here are a couple of resources for you that speak to appeals. I mean, we could probably talk a whole hour about the appeals process and then some. We have videos available on our YouTube channel, but these are a couple of good resources that I wanted to include today. How to Appeal a Claim Determination is a resource that appears on our website. It includes, how to submit your appeal. Do you want to do it in writing? Do you not want to send it in writing? Do you want to, file that appeal request using the transactional portal? All of that great information is in that resource, in addition to a list of those 5 levels and their time frames and the amounts in controversy. But I think perhaps one of my favorite appeals resources is the second one listed here, and that is the CMS fee-for-service appeals process flowchart. This is a flowchart on CMS's website. It's updated annually. because it often needs to. One of the things that changes from year to year, or could change from year to year, is the amount in controversy for levels 3 and 5. So if you're using this resource available on the CMS website, make certain you're checking out that date that's located in the lower part of, or at the bottom of the page. I like this particular flow chart because it has all 5 levels, and I can see visually the 5 levels and those dates, you know, the time frames for requesting the appeal, and also the time frame to complete or render that appeal decision. The amounts in controversy, as I mentioned, are also there, but that's just one of my favorites, and I did want to share it with you. Okay, this brings us now to the data portion of our website, and you'll notice here that I've listed here data dashboard, and that's the name that is given to the many dashboards that we use in provider outreach and education. The ones that I used to pull the data for this particular webinar today is the claim rejections and denials dashboard. The dashboard is a tool that was created by our data team at WPS-GHA. The name of that department is Insight, and they've created this tool to enable people like Ellen and me to pull up the dashboard and place into it the various filters so that we can view the data we want to see. Let me explain that a little more to you. All right, so I pulled up I access the claim rejection and denials dashboard, and I asked for information from all states in MAC jurisdictions 5 and 8. We are the MAC for jurisdiction 5, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska, and also jurisdiction 8, which is Indiana and Michigan. The claims that I'm talking about today in this webinar, and just as I advertised, are Part B claims. Those claims submitted on the 1500 claim form or the 837P electronic claim. I filtered for specialty 11 only claims in MAC jurisdictions 5 and 8, those that are internal medicine providers or specialty for internal medicine. When providers enroll with a MAC, they are asked to self-designate a specialty or a primary specialty, and a 2-digit code is assigned for that specialty. CMS maintains the list of specialty codes for professional claims, and specialty 11 is internal medicine. Now, providers can and often do designate a secondary specialty, and sometimes even more than 2. But it is based on that primary specialty, that one self-designated as a primary specialty, that claims are processed. So the claims system logic during claims processing is only going to look at the primary specialty. I filtered for submission dates February 1 of 2024 through April 30 of 2024, and the data that I looked at, that dashboard, was last refreshed on May 7 of 2024. And what that means is that any claims submitted for MAC jurisdictions 5 and 8 by a specialty 11 provider, those dates of service, if it was after May 7 of 2024, that data won't be included. Okay, so I am going to show you now, or reveal to you, the most common rejections or common rejections by reason code. So these are the reason codes that are going to print out on the remittance advice or on the RA. You'll notice numbers behind them. Those numbers represent the number of rejections for that reason during that time period for specialty 11 providers. So first of all, we have claim lacks information needed for adjudication. So something is missing from that claim. Now, there's a number of resources you can use, but it's likely what you're going to want to do is look at the other reason codes on the remittance advice to provide a little bit more information to you. I mentioned to you some of these are a little bit cryptic. Some of them are a little bit more descriptive. But this case, claim lacks information needed for adjudication, was the reason for denial 12,376 times. What you'll want to do is check the claim over and make sure that all of the information that is needed for adjudication or processing is included. You can look at the CMS claim form instructions. In addition to those claim form instructions, that includes item by item what you need to put on the claim and in which situations, when is it required, when is it situational. We also have, or WPS has, actually our electronic data interchange, or EDI staff, has made available a claims crosswalk. And what that does is it provides for you a spreadsheet that shows each of the items on the claim form, a paper claim form. So if it goes, for example, in item number 11 on the paper claim, what loop and where does it go in, and which data element on the electronic claim does it belong? So it also, that crosswalk identifies when the data content is required or when it's situational on a claim. I'll point that resource out to you when I get to it, when I go through the resources near the end of my presentation. Next up, rendering physician, it says denied. And there again, folks, remember I said to you, some of these sometimes don't appear to make a lot of sense, because it is indeed common rejections by reason code that I'm talking about now. And this is how this one prints out. It says denied. So does the next one. If you'll look to the third bullet, it says denied, but it's actually rejection. Rendering physician number invalid or missing. Submit a new claim. 11,225. That means the number was invalid. Maybe it was keyed incorrectly, so that made it invalid, or it was missing altogether. You need to correct that. Add a valid rendering physician number, or a missing, add one that when it was missing, and submit that new claim. Next common rejection reason is invalid or missing modifier, over 3,000 claims. We have on our website a modifier web page, and on that modifier web page, we have links to nearly all of the modifier codes that are used for professional claims. So if it's a situation where you're not sure about use of a modifier, or understand which codes does it apply to, which codes does it not apply to, what is appropriate use, what isn't, you can look to those modifier fact sheets on our website. Next one, very popular across specialties, not just for internal medicine. Claim must be submitted to RRB. RRB is how this prints out, and what this means is Railroad Retirement Board. That means that the beneficiary is not eligible for Part A, Part B that is processed by the MAC, but his or her claim needs to be submitted instead to the Railroad Retirement Board. Railroad retirees that are eligible for Medicare have their claim processed not by the traditional MACs, the AB MACs, but by the Railroad Board MAC, and that is Palmetto GBA. So in this case, your claim may be rejected, and it might tell you that you need to submit to the RRB, or Palmetto GBA. Missing, incomplete, invalid ordering primary identifier, over 2,000 claims. Medicare requires an ordering primary identifier on claims for services. If it's missing or incomplete or invalid, you will need to add that information and resubmit your claim for processing. CMS has some great resources on their website that lists all eligible referring and ordering providers, as well as their NPI identifiers. The next common rejection, based on the data that I pulled for this webinar, is place of service conflicts with procedure code and need to submit a new claim. This is a situation where if you're unsure whether a particular procedure code may or may not be billed in a particular place of service, you might be able to find some resources on our website, but another thing you can do is pick up the phone and call customer service. What you should not do is give them a specific billing scenario, because that would be considered coding. advice that we would be giving you. And we are prohibited from offering coding advice. What you would want to do is keep your question rather generic. What you need to do, and these are kind of magic words, does your system accept CPT code 12345 in place of service 11, for example? Does your system accept? What you don't want to say is, should I code this in place of service that? So you just need to know, does your system accept? Does this place of service conflict with the procedure code, or is it acceptable? Next up is denied, although this is a rejection I'm talking about. Field 11, or item 11, of the HCFA 1500, and that is a great example of what I talked about earlier, in that some acronyms are outdated. It's not the HCFA 1500 anymore, it's the CMS 1500. Field 11 of the claim form must be completed. This is a field on the claim form that asks the provider, is there insurance that is primary to Medicare? And well, the answer could be yes, in which case you would need to populate other items on the claim. But if the answer is no, you can't leave this blank. You need to write none. So this is a common rejection reason, not just, again, for internal medicine, but for some other primary specialties as well. The next is the hospital should bill Part A for this service. So in this case, this was a situation that a claim was submitted for a service that needs to be processed by Part B. Missing procedure modifier or modifiers, 770 rejections. Again, we have those great fact sheets that are available. When this happens, or when you see this on a remittance advice, you know that you need to add a modifier, and the modifier fact sheets will help you determine which modifier it is that you need. Patient insured HICN and name do not match. That's health insurance claim number. We no longer use that acronym. Instead, we use the MBI, the Medicare Beneficiary Identifier. When you enter a name on a claim form or submit a name on a claim form submission, it needs to match exactly to that of the name on the beneficiaries or the patient's Medicare card. So this would be a situation that you want to make sure your folks that are greeting your patients and asking for their identifiers are doing so often, and making certain that the name matches exactly so that the information you place onto their claim is accurate. If there's a middle initial used, use the middle initial on the claim form. Or yeah. The next one is denied. The CLIA number is invalid or missing. And CLIA is Clinical Laboratory Improvements Act, and it is a law that requires certification when lab work is being rendered. And when the lab work is a certified lab that's being rendered, you need to place the certificate or the certification number on the claim form. So this is going to happen when you're billing for those lab services on a claim. If it is one that requires the CLIA number, you need to make certain it's on the claim form, and you need to make certain that it's being entered correctly. So those are the top, or the common rejections by reason for the claims that for the data that I analyzed. I thought it would be interesting not just to show you the reasons, those common reasons, but to show you the common CPT codes for those reasons that I just talked about, and here they are. You're going to see a lot of E&M services, of course, on this claim or on this slide. Again, I placed the number of rejections and such. Now, I didn't advertise that I was going into it specifically for this webinar, but something to consider, should it be helpful to those of you that are listening today, would it be helpful for you to have further breakdown of these CPT codes and the reasons why they rejected? If you think that's something that would be helpful, I'd love to hear from you. One great way that you can say that, breakdown of reasons by CPT code would be helpful to your practice. Let me know that when you fill out your survey following this event. All of you will be asked to complete a brief survey, and if you believe that further breakdown, or if there's a particular code within your organization that's particularly problematic, suggest that as a topic for future education, and we can consider it. Another thing you'll see here is the AWV code, the G0439. For internal medicine, there are situations let me back it up a little bit. When you provide an AWV and a significant, separately identifiable, medically necessary evaluation and management, or E&M service, we may pay for that additional service. What you need to do is report the CPT code and use the modifier 25. Again, that's going to be based on your documentation. So we can't tell you, yes, add a modifier 25 or don't. It's got to be based on your documentation. That portion of the visit must be medically necessary and reasonable in order to treat the patient's illness or injury, or to improve the functioning of a malformed body part. So in this situation, you might want to consider the 25 modifier on the E&M code when it's being billed with the AWV, but there needs to be justification in the documentation to show that it was significant and separately identifiable. When I get to the resource section today, you will find that I have included many existing or more than one existing resource that will help you when you're submitting claims to Medicare for those situations when an AWV and a significant separately identifiable medically necessary E&M service are rendered the same day. G0463 is the hospital outpatient clinic visit for assessment and management of the patient, and that really is the administrative expenses that are associated with the visit. So something to keep in mind there, that is the Part A type billing. G2067 is Medicare assisted treatment of methadone, and it's used to cover episodes of care lasting 7 days in a row. So you can't bill the same patient more than once for that 7-day period. CMS does provide billing and payment information on their website for this code. It's included in the reference. We also have multiple videos that address E&M, preventive services, opioid use screening, and opioid treatment program videos. We do have those videos available on our WPS GHA YouTube channel, and I've included the link to that resource later in this presentation. Let's take a look now at the common denials. Collection of fee-for-service during periods of managed care. This is a situation where that particular beneficiary has managed care, which is part of Medicare Advantage or Medicare Part C. So that particular claim would need to be one that is processed by the Medicare Advantage plan, not by WPS. The next one is a duplicate denial, duplicate charge paid. That question mark followed by numbers and X's represents a date of service that will print out on the RA. So the duplicate charge paid on such and such a date on claim, and that next series of question mark and numbers and X's would be a claim identifier. So it would identify a particular claim, internal control number, or ICN. So this, folks, is a duplicate charge over 20,000 denials. If you were to put a dollar amount, let's say, on each of those 20,000 claims, and think about it in terms of costs to both the beneficiary, or not the beneficiary, to the provider and to Medicare, that's a lot of money. So for duplicate charges, duplicate denials, and we do have resources on our website that speak to it, that we ask that you take a look and make certain that you're not using a billing rotation that would just automatically submit a claim every 30 days. You're not using a billing service that just automatically submits that claim every 30 days if it has not yet been paid. Make certain that you're not abusing that, you're only submitting claims when it's necessary. necessary to do so. But the resource on our website will help you determine when you should or should not submit claims. Physician not eligible to receive payment. This is a situation where you would want to contact provider enrollment. Pick up the phone, call customer service. They'll put you through to someone that is a provider enrollment specialist to help you determine why, what it is. Why is the physician not eligible or provider to receive payment on the particular given day? Payment included in another service received on the same day. This is a form of bundling. Some services are not payable ever because they are considered a bundled service, and for those services, there will be a B in the status column of the relative value file. When that occurs, that claim or that service is never going to be paid for. Payment is included in another service received on the same day. Next reason, claim must be sent to the EGHP first. The EGHP stands for Employer Group Health Plan, and this, folks, is a situation where the Employer Group Health Plan is the primary payer. So the claim needs to go there before Medicare will pay. That's a Medicare secondary payer situation, and you will need to follow the rules for Medicare secondary payer. And in the resources, I've included some good information for you to look to avoid those types of denials. More denials, not enrolled in the CLIA program. I already talked about those claim rejections for CLIA because the information wasn't included on the claim form. Well, in this situation, the provider's not even enrolled in the CLIA program. Over 5,000 denials. So make certain you look to those resources we have available that explain the CLIA program, tell you, what you need to include on your claim and how you go about enrolling in that program. The time limit for filing your claim has expired. And look at the next part, folks, no appeal right. There is no appeal right for a claim that is denied or claim line denied, well, claim that would be, because the filing limit has expired. There is actually, for this one, and I'm going to pull over our website because I want to show you this information because it's so very, very popular. A commonly asked question, I guess, if you will. I'm going to search for timely filing. And here's some matches that come up. I'm going to choose this one, the timely filing of claims. I have included this as a resource in your presentation materials. This is a resource on the WPS website that talks about timely filing of claims. Talks about the fact that those denials based on timely filing don't have appeal rights. And then this is the part that I wanted to mention specifically today that we get the most questions about. We often receive questions from or requests from providers to reopen their claims for timely filing when another insurer recouping their previous payment caused the delay. If you read this, folks, it says CMS does not accept errors caused by incorrect third-party payment as justification for not submitting timely claims. It's actually written in the internet-only manual, and we have that language italicized here for you in this resource. If you do have one of those situations where Medicare may extend the timely filing limit, if you scroll down in this resource, it tells you how to file the waiver to extend the timely filing limit. You might notice up here, this is blue, darkened out, J8 MAC Part B. So that's why you're seeing Indiana and Michigan listed here in this resource. If you are a provider in our other jurisdiction, just simply click over to J5 MAC Part B and you'll find the contact information for those states. Timely filing. That is one of the few exceptions where there is no appeal right when a claim is denied. Expenses incurred prior to coverage, $4,915. That one's really self-explanatory. Separate payment not made for this service. Do not bill the patient. This would apply for those services that are bundled based on the National Correct Coding Initiative edit. We have procedure to procedure edits where if two codes are billed by the same provider for the same patient during the same encounter on the same day, the column 2 code on that edit table is going to bundle into the column 1 code, or that payment. No separate payment will be made. You will need to look at those edit tables to see if there is an indicator listed that will tell you when or whether you may or may not append a modifier, an NCCI associated modifier, that is, to unbundle payment for the column 2 service. I'll show you that resource when we get to that. Not covered when performed, referred, or ordered by this provider. Again, maybe it wasn't, maybe the ordering provider number wasn't keyed correctly on the claim. Maybe the provider is one that's not eligible to order a service or refer a service. CMS has that list on their website of those providers that can refer or order services. Now, performed is also on here. All right, here are the commonly denied codes for claims that were denied for internal medicine for the dates I mentioned to you. Very much the same across the board as what you were seeing on the rejected lists of codes. And again, if you need or would like, or you think it would be helpful to further break this down, we can consider doing that in the future, but we need to know if it would be helpful to you. Okay. Claims dashboard. I just threw this in here to tell you that we really can break things down further. I looked at specialty 11 claims in all states. We can really break down by state, even to county, by HCPCS code, state and county. And we can also look at trending. And when I say trending, what I'm talking about is this. Here is some data that I pulled, again, from those dashboards that I talked about for a denial. And I chose this reason: unable to obtain primary insurer information. So that means that, yes, the provider told us that there was another insurance primary to Medicare, but we are not able to obtain that information based on what's entered on the claim, who it is, that other primary insurer. So the claim count, the current 3 months, is 111 claims. But for this particular denial reason, the count the 3 months prior was only 14. The difference in the number of claims is 97. The percentage of change is 693%. So this is what the kind of things that we look at, this type of trending. We analyze this, and this helps us recognize, do we need to write a resource? Do we need to hold a webinar? Do we need to send out an education letter? Do we need to consider recording a YouTube video? These are the kind of things that CMS expects us to monitor and consider when we determine what we should do or should not render education on or provide education on. Here are the resources, and I'm going to go through these, rather quickly. There is a lot of them. Some of them I've mentioned before. A couple of them I might want to pull open and show you as we move on here. First of all, requirements for Medicare claims. I mentioned to you early on, claim lacks information needed for adjudication. Here is the IOM publication, the Medicare Claims Processing Manual, Chapter 26, that shows you item by item what you need to include on the paper claim form. This crosswalk is that spreadsheet that I mentioned to you, and I do want to show you this real quick here. On the CMS, or excuse me, on the WPS website, this is our homepage. And on the homepage, right-hand side, if you scroll down, are quick links. If you quick link to EDI, our Electronic Data Interchange Department, you will actually go to a new website, and this is the website for EDI. Scroll down and you'll see Medicare EDI. We have different lines of business. You want Medicare. And this is where you will be able to find those companion guides that tell you the 990 or the 276, 277 report, the companion guides. This tells you those data elements that are required or needed on the Medicare claims for WPS. But here, this crosswalk is that handy document that I want to show you that crosswalks all of the items on a claim. So in other words, if it goes in item number 11 on a paper claim, where does it go on the electronic claim? You know, the loop, the location, gives you the data element description and requirements for the version 5010 claim form. I want to point out this status column close to the far right of this document, and S means, and if you look at the bottom of the page, any data element that must be completed if other conditions exist. So that means it's situational. And R in this column means that the data element is needed in order to process a claim. So that would mean it's required. Okay, a great tool for those rejected claims. And even some of the denied claims. Next, we have a resource on our website, how to correct a rejected claim. I talked about those remark codes early on in my presentation. Those remark codes you're going to see on the remittance advice. Go to this resource and look for your remark code. If it's a rejected claim, it'll explain how to correct it. Similarly, we have common claim denials, and this is going to suggest different actions you can take to avoid common rejections for denials. Might also kind of give you an idea of what it is you need to provide if you're requesting an appeal. For the denials, we've categorized them. You know, we have bundling denials, we have entitlement denials, we have those duplicate denials that I talked about. Again, these are listed by reason and remark codes based on these categories. Tells you how to avoid those denials or what you might need to do when you submit an appeal. Other resources, our website. Here are those Medicare secondary payer questions and answers that I told you would be helpful. We have a live events webpage that lists all the upcoming education. We have our recordings on our Encore presentations webpage. We have a lookup tool on our website that will help you if you're looking at, and then we didn't really have any claims that rejected or denied. The most common, that is, that are specific to an LCD or local coverage determination. But if you're looking to see if something is part of a local coverage determination or companion article, here's a great tool for you. You can enter the code, the title, or definition to search to see if we have an LCD or an article that matches whatever it is you entered and searched for. There's also an NCD lookup. So for example, I'm just going to pull something out of my head here, depression. There is an NCD, a National Coverage Determination screening for depression in adults. So that's a quick way to find something that's linked to, or that is part of, I should say, an LCD or an NCD. We have our YouTube channel. I mentioned to you the many YouTube videos we have available about the Welcome to Medicare visit, or the annual wellness visit, I should say, and E&M. There's a lot of great E&M videos out there. Clinical lab and reference lab services coding guidelines, helpful for those lab rejections, denials. Freedom of Information Act is if you want specific information that pertains to your practice. This is the way you can get your hands on that information. We want to partner with you as listed here. If your specialty organization has, or you belong to any coding associations or societies, and you want someone from WPS to come and present on not just rejections and denials, but other topics, this is the way you can get to our request for speaker form, or partnership request form, I guess it's called. You can fill out the form and submit it and have someone, you know, whether it's in person or it's virtual. If it's an association or society, we may want to, or we may be able to partner with you. There's that code lookup tool, have that here. Modifiers, this is where you get to those modifier fact sheets available out on our website. Nearly all of the modifiers are included. If the easiest way to find them, besides using the link that I've included, is out in the Claims Topic Center. I clicked on Topic Center, I clicked on Claims, and I'm scrolling down, and here is modifier. And again, I've embedded the link. If you choose modifier, you'll be able to see many different modifier fact sheets. We talked about 25 modifier here. Provides for you some information about use of the 25 modifier, when it's appropriate, when it's not. There's some statements here that are false. There's codes, procedure codes that you can append this particular modifier to, of course, based on the documentation as justification for reporting that particular modifier. So that is the 25 fact sheet. Timely filing of claims is that resource that I showed you earlier. More resources, Clinical Lab Center, the Medicare Coverage Database, that's a searchable depository of national and local coverage determinations and articles. This review contractor directory will help you determine if you need to submit your claim to that Railroad Retirement Board, or maybe another you'll need to submit to another Medicare contractor or even a review contractor. This is an interactive map. It's the United States. You just click on your state and you'll find a list of all of the contractors there for you. Proper billing for various Medicare Advantage HMO claims. We had some rejections, I believe, or actually it was a denial when a beneficiary had chosen Medicare Advantage versus traditional Medicare. So there's a resource here, an article, place of service code set. We had that place of service doesn't match the procedure code error pop up and that I talked about. So there you will find the place of service code set, or a list of codes for professional claims. I know one of my colleagues is soon to advertise, or already had advertised, a webinar that she has coming up that will talk about place of service. So look for that under live events. Medicare wellness visits, there's one of the resources I mentioned to you that you can look to those. You know, when is the E&M billable in addition to the wellness visit? When isn't it? What do you need to do in order for Medicare to consider payment? Here is the National Correct Coding Initiative edits. This is where you'll find those bundling edits. The procedure to procedure edit files are here. That column 1 code with the column 2 code. When can you or can you not append a modifier to the column 2 code in order to unbundle payment? We talked about one of the codes that hit for common rejections or denials was opioid treatment program code. So I've included a link to that resource for you. A reference guide for physicians and supplier billings for Part B. This is that ordering and referring information I talked about that CMS has on their website. Who are the providers that are eligible to order? Who are the providers eligible to refer? And then it includes identifiers also. The IVR is a self-service tool, as is our transactional portal. Both are used to check eligibility and find claim status and details, although you'll find a little bit more details in the portal, which is the very next slide that I'm going to show you. But both of these are tools available, self-service tools available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is limited functionality outside normal business hours, but the IVR is the tool that you use your voice, your telephone keypad, and we do have instructions for using it in the IVR operating guide. So this will help you check claim status, you know, and check eligibility. Sometimes there's claim denials because the beneficiary, the provider, was not eligible for this service. So keep this tool in mind, as well as the portal. And when you're using our portal, if you're looking at claim details, one of the functions that providers find particularly useful is there's a button that appears that says more info. So if your claim line denies and you need more information about why that denied, click on that more info button. For example, if a claim denies based on a local coverage determination, when you click that more info button, there's going to be a link that comes up, or typically there will be, not always, a link that comes up where you can go right to or click on and go open that policy right up. So it saves you some steps and some time. We do have the portal user manual. I want to show you real quick here where you can find that. If you're on any page of our website, you can find, I'm going to click on Training Center, any page of our website. In the big blue box at the bottom, you will find portal user manual, under educational opportunities. That's where you can get to the portal. Or on the homepage of our website under this login box to log into the portal, the link to the portal user manual is immediately below it. That's where you'll find those illustrations and step-by-steps for using the functionalities that are available in the transactional portal. One of them is the clerical error reopening process. Want to tell you really quick about a conference coming up. CMS has asked us to include this in all of our education. Noridian Healthcare Solutions teaming up with CMS to host this. This is to educate providers and suppliers on multiple provider enrollment aspects. It is free. Of course, you'll need to pay expenses to get there and stay there, but the conference itself is free. It's in August the 28th, 29th in San Diego. Times vary. There is a link included here and in your presentation materials that provides a description of the conference, the schedule, and registration opportunities. This is now time for I have to apologize here, time for questions, and I've really just kind of gone over, so I'm going to ask that you, if you know, many of you might have, or some of you might have already submitted claims via chat, but if you've not already done that, in just a couple of minutes, I am going to give you an opportunity to submit your questions to me, and I'll make sure that all of them get answered. Finally, I just want to mention that our greatest compliment is when you recommend our education to others. Please consider doing so, talking to people both internally and externally. This will really help us make certain that we assure current and effective education for all of those in our entire MAC jurisdiction. On behalf of myself and Ellen Vera and all of Provider Outreach and Education, thank you for your participation. We look forward to those survey comments, and we hope to have you join us at future events. You may now disconnect. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.